want to, it's been awesome today because everything that's been said, like even in Sunday school, like little pieces of what was said, it kind of ties into what the Lord gave me, um, and even your testimony, it ties into what God gave me. So I am excited about the word today. I'm gonna come from Genesis chapter 32. And I'm going to start reading from verse 24. Yes. But you can say see it because I'm going to kind of give a little backdrop first. But the title or the subject of the message today is Can Your Character Handle the Promise?
Wow, that's good.
Um, I'm going to we'll be talking about Jacob. We're kind of familiar with his story. Him and Esau were brothers. Isaac and Rebekah, those were his parents. Isaac loved Esau more than he loved Jacob, and Rebekah loved Jacob more than he loved Esau. First of all, there's a problem in that in itself because the parents favored one child over the other. All that's going to do is cause friction in their relationship. First, in the parents' relationship, but also in the kids' relationship as well. And so, as the story of these two brothers go on, we see that Jacob's kind of a trickster, but in his tricking of his brother, his mom was like the culprit of it. You know, she was like, hey, this is what you need to do because I want you to get the blessing. So Isaac was going to bless Esau. Esau was born first. He was the older brother. And back in the day, the oldest received the blessing from the father. And it kind of set him up for life. You know, it was his inheritance, as you said earlier today. That blessing was the inheritance that he was receiving to set him in motion for the rest of his life. Well, Rebekah wanted that for Jacob. And so Isaac had told Esau to do some stuff, to go out, and he was a hunter, so to go out and hunt and then to make him some soup, let's say. And Rebekah told Jacob, I want you to go into your father's room, and I want you to pretend like you are your brother, and you're going to get the blessing. And so Jacob, listening to his mother, did just that. And so he tricked his dad into blessing, giving him Esau's blessing. Well, Esau it pisses him off. He was mad about it. And so he wanted to kill Jacob. And so Jacob ran. So he left his home and he ran away from there, and he was gone for a long time. But in this, his character, when he left where he was that of a deceitful person and of a trickster. And so, in God wanting to deal with him, Jacob needed a heart change. And so he needed to be broken. Now, we don't like brokenness, but it is necessary, and it's a central part of God's transformation process. So in your testimony, you got to a place where you were broken, but it was because God needed to change you. He had to get you to a place where, you know, it was like, there's nothing else. This is it. And then he said, no, I'm going to step in now. Because you became vulnerable. So sometimes to move us from the flaws and imperfection that we have that seem to be okay, but are not okay with him, he has to break us. All right. So what does brokenness mean? It means to be stripped of your self-sufficiency. Brokenness takes you to a place where you no longer live independent from God. God wants you to a place where he can control the direction of your life. Jacob didn't want his direction necessarily. He wanted to scheme his way through stuff. And don't we do that? Like we feel like we could trick people into giving us stuff, or we go to I know, you got to make deals, but like we'll go to car dealerships and stuff like that and try to scheme our way into a lower deal, trick our way into, you know what I'm saying? And that's how Jacob was. He wanted everything, but he wanted the hookup for everything that he got. And that was a character flaw for God because he was self-sufficient and God wanted him to depend totally on him. So God had this great promise to Jacob. He said, I give you a covenant, the covenant of Abraham and Isaac, but your character has got to be able to handle it. Ask yourself, can my character handle the promise?
Wow.
Even though you may have like these great promises that God's given you, God sees your flaws and he's not satisfied with those things, and he wants to change you to make you ready for what he's prepared for you. So think about it this way, and this is how I look at it. I have a great promise keeper, and he wants to give me everything that he said so much that he's willing to take me to a place or take time to change me so that I can get everything that he has for me.
Amen.
Now, that's love. When he makes the promise, and he could easily say, okay, this is the promise that I give you. It's up to you to go get it. And part of it is on us, but he will direct you and lead you to try to help you get to that place where you can be unflawed for that promise. God will acknowledge his words, but you have to line up. So Jacob needed an experience, something that would cause a change on the inside. And that's what happens when he wrestles with this man. What leads him to this point in his life is desperation. At this point in Genesis 32, he is fearing his brother Esau because Esau has been after him, trying to kill him for about 20 years. That's a long time to be running for your life. 20 years, that's a long time to hold on to hatred. That's a long time to, have this vendetta out for somebody. But it's also a long time to be living in fear of the day that you meet your brother. You know what I'm saying? And God is very strategic too, because he sends them back. God says, go back to the land that you came from. And Jacob knows what's waiting there. He's like, you want to send me back to the place that I ran from because my brother wants to kill me? Okay. And so God is trying to get Jacob to a certain place, but you got to see the strategy in what he's doing. He still has to make a choice to go.
Right.
So God's saying, okay, if I tell you to go, will you obey? So that's first. How many times have God said, hey, I need you to go do this, and we just sat down on it and didn't obey God? How can he get you to a place that he needs you to be at if you won't even go when he says go? And so first he tells Jacob, I need you to go here. And Jacob's like, okay, well, he's like, even through my defeat, even through my deceit, even through the trickery, I look back and God says, and Jacob says to God, I'm unworthy of all the loving kindness and compassion and all of the faithfulness that you have shown me. But you've been faithful and you haven't failed me yet. So if I go, I believe that you'll still be faithful. And so Jacob goes because he's like, you ain't failed me yet. Even in my wrongdoing, even in my unfaithfulness, even with me doing you still haven't failed me.
Amen.
So why not? Why not go? Why not obey and see what you have for me? And I don't know about you, but I thank God for his faithfulness, because I'm not going to stand here and pretend like, I'm perfect. And I know as bad as it might sound, there was a time in my life too where I wasn't even thinking about God like that. Like, I wanted to do what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, and that's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? And I I got to a point where he had to break me. And it's not fun at all.
Come on.
Like, it's not a fun process, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
So Jacob looked at his life and said, I better go. You haven't steered me wrong yet. Even though my mess, you still bless me. Jacob didn't see it, but God had already begun the process of changing him. Jacob, go. Yes, God, I'll go. I'll obey. God, you've been faithful. I'm starting to see that if I just trust you, that you will have my back. You'll bless me. So Jacob goes and he takes his family with him. But because of his fear, he splits his family into two groups. He sends them into two different directions. His mindset behind it was, if I send you here and I send this group here, if they come for this group, at least this group can escape. So everybody won't die. But, you know, I'm trying to protect somebody. And so that gets us to this place in Genesis chapter 32. Verse 24, he says, then Jacob was left alone. So God's not always going to just remove people out of your lives. Sometimes he'll require you to send them away. Sometimes he'll put you in a situation to where you have to remove them yourself. Amen. So that you can get by yourself, so that he can deal with you by yourself. Amen. You know what I mean? Yes. God is like, when will you allow me to deal with you? No. I want to bless you, but I have to deal with your heart. Yeah. Not everybody else around you, but you individually. I want to manifest the promise, but this character flaw will cause you to lose everything I give you. So spend some time with me alone so we can work out the kinks.
Come on now.
He says, so we can work out the kinks. Because it takes you and him to work it out. He can do so much, but if you don't act on what he's saying and what he's doing, then you're going to stay the same. Verse 24, he says, then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. So Jacob's here, he's already scared, he's by himself, he's scared of his brother, and out of nowhere, all of a sudden, this random man shows up. Yeah, come on. It's like, man, okay, this ain't my brother. Who is this person that is coming here to fight me? So in his mind, he's literally still fighting for his life. So not only is he running for his life, right now he's fighting for his life. And he fought until daybreak, until the sun came up. Okay, that's a long time. Seriously, I mean, think about it. Like when the sun goes down, I mean, it's a lot of hours in between nightfall and that sun coming up. And he had to have a determination in his mind to live. So it took stamina. What's stamina? Stamina is the ability to sustain prolonged physical or mental effort. Now, the definition says physical or mental effort, but I say physical and mental effort. Because the mental aspect of your fight is a major factor. It determines how your physical effort plays out. So that's why the words say, as a man thinketh, so is he. Because how you think about a situation, if you think that you lost already, then your mindset is defeat. So that physical effort that you put forth isn't going to be that a victorious person. You're just going to kind of go through the motions, and you'll fall short. So Jacob's mindset was, I shall live and not die. And the mentality gave him power to endure without giving away. So what do your actions say about your mentality?
Wow, my goodness.
I mean, and you really have to think about that, because a lot of times we're saying a lot of stuff, but we forget that phrase that says actions speak louder than words. That holds true, because you can tell a lot about a person by their actions, by how they handle situations or how they go through situations. So in verse 25, He says, and when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and Jacob's thigh was put out of joint as he wrestled him. See, when you get to a place when you truly are desperate for God, it doesn't matter what it takes. You're going to do what you have to do to get to that place. Right. It says, and Jacob's hip is one translation, was dislocated as he wrestled with him. Not, it was dislocated and he stopped. No, it was dislocated as he wrestled with him. He didn't stop fighting. Now, how many of you guys, if you had a broken bone in your body or something, a sprained ankle, would let go and be like, I'm good. Nope, and fall all the way back and just give up? How many of you guys do that? But that's excruciating pain. Yeah, look at the pain. Excruciating pain. But he didn't give up. Jacob was in so much pain, but he had made up in his mind that he was going to fight until he got what he needed. There are times when God is ready to change you, and it's going to hurt. But will you endure? Yeah. Sometimes there's pain in the process of getting you to the promise. But as Bishop said, what do you say? How bad do you want it? Real growth experience involves some kind of struggle or pain. Let's go to verse 26. It says, then he said, let me go, for day is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you declare a blessing upon me. Yeah. Amen. Are you this desperate for what God has for you? Are you this desperate for God to do a work in you? Okay. The man was trying to get away. He said, let me go. Jacob was like, no. No. Dislocated hip, tired, ain't slept all night, probably thirsty, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, I'm not letting you go. Why? Because I need something from you. Come on. You have what I need, and I'm not going to let you go until I get what I am fighting for. Amen. You mean to tell me that what he was seeking from God was more important than the pain that he was enduring? Wow.
Come on, think about that.
When it gets tough, when it seems unbearable, is what God has for you worth the fight? Wow. Will you continue? Somebody say, don't tap out.
Don't tap out.
You got to think about it. He's fought all night. The sun's about to come back up. They've been going at it a long time. He's tired, and the man tells him, let me go. And he says, not at all. Not going to happen. Now, the easy thing would have been to just be like, okay, like, you said let go? Sure, why not? That means that you're about to leave and not kill me. But what would have come of that? He would have been fighting all night in the same boat with a broke hip. Yeah. Still not blessed. Still unchanged. Still not getting what he was seeking for. God wants to know, are you willing to go till the end? Are you willing to hold on even when you're tired, even when you feel broken and hurt? Are you willing to hold on until you get what he has for you? Somebody here is like losing a fight, and God is saying, don't tap out. You're almost there, just fight a little longer. He says, I'm still working a few things out in you, but just pray a little longer. Said there's a character flaw, but it's almost gone. So just read a little longer. He says, fight through the fatigue. Don't tap out. Verse 27 says, the man asked him, what is your name? And in shock of realization, whispering, he said, Jacob, supplanter, schemer, trickster, swindler. What is in a name? Why did that matter? In the Bible, a name was not just a name. Your name truly signified your identity, your dominion. It told the story about who you are, your character. And so Jacob, his name means trickster, deceiver, supplanter, one who trips up or overthrows. So in other words, he was saying, tell me your name so I can know your character. Who are you? I'm a trickster. I'm deceitful. God is trying to change some of our names, but when he asks who we are, we try to conceal it.
Yeah, there you go.
Like he don't know it anyway.
Come on.
He knows it, but you're trying to hide it from yourself, and you're trying to hide it from him. But sometimes, in order for him to change your name, he wants you to admit to who you are. That thing that is keeping you from getting to him. He wants you to admit, okay, this is my issue. This is my problem. This is who I am, and I don't want to be this no more. So can you change that part of me? Can you change that name in me? Because I don't want to be identified by this thing. Jacob that was his identity. Jacob. Okay, I gotta be careful around you. Because you're a trickster. That's what your name means. Well, God's like, who are you? Tell me who you are. If he wouldn't have said his name, you know what that means? I'm not ready to be changed.
Right. Come on.
I'm okay with where I am. And I'm going to stay here. So if God's asking you, who am I? Speak your name. So that he can say, no longer.
That's good.
So verse 28, he says, and he said, your name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For you have contended and have power with God and with man and have prevailed.
Amen.
Israel means the one who strives with God. Well, if you go back up in verse 24, he says, and a man wrestled. But now, with the name change, he says, you've been wrestling with God.
Right.
So I was like, okay, like what? How can you help me out a little bit, Lord? And so he said, don't mistake the hand of man for the hand of God.
Come on.
And don't mistake the hand of God for the hand of man. Just because you think you're dealing with a person, when really you're dealing with God sending somebody to change your character.
Right.
He says, sometimes I'm going to use situations that seem humanly, when really it's something divine going on.
Right.
So Jacob was concerned about the situation that presented itself, but it was never about that. It was never about what was going on. It was always about him, about his heart, about his character. God's concern wasn't in the situation. It was with Jacob. He knew what the situation was. He allowed it to happen. He was in control of it the entire time. He's the one who allowed it. You're the issue. Jacob had to come to the end of himself. He didn't even understand everything that was going on. He just knew that God had what he needed, and that is what he was desperate to get. You can stand on your feet. God made a promise to you, and you're wondering why. Why haven't I seen the manifestation of it yet? You have to ask yourself, can my character handle the promise?